I'm happy to welcome you to the Art Institute of Light. To me, it's a dream of more than 20 years come true. 20 years of constant work, which often seemed quite hopeless, and it kept me spellbound through all the dark periods. It was the work of trying to play to others the glorious visions which I saw myself. For the last 10 years, I have lived and worked so intensely in this place, not knowing where or when it was to be, sat in that keyboard room, stood on this stage, walked through the corridors, sometimes pushing a wall a little to one side and then to the other. That when the walls actually did go up and the instruments were moved in, it seemed to me merely a slight finishing touch. Milestone planted at the side of a road that still leads on, and to which, to my dying day, I know I shall see no end. To you and others, it should mean the opening of a gateway to a new world of visual beauty, through which your imagination may journey to take part in the dream of moving luminous form and color in absolute space. And through these adventures, find new path to the beauty and riches which lie unexplored in all of us. Before the course is over, I hope to have transformed this hall into the cabin of a fantastic dream ship, capable of traveling through space with the speed of thought, landing you on unearthly spheres of light and understanding, and yet always bringing back with a very real treasure of new beauty and a desire to gather more. I shall try to be a good captain, but remember I'm navigating uncharted ways. I shall now begin to use a new word in our language, Lumia. You will find it in the latest edition of Collier's Encyclopedia. It is a name I have coined for the new art form of light, which heretofore has gone by such misleading terms as color music, mobile color, color light music, etc. Lumia has parallels, painting, sculpture, dance, and music, and seems to be easily understood and pronounced in most languages. It will be to the point to give a brief outline of the Art Institute of Light and its aims. It has been founded as an aesthetic research station for the better understanding of light, that we may learn to use it for making the world more beautiful and its people happier. It consists of studios and laboratories in which constant efforts will be made to design and perfect such instruments as will permit the new Lumia artists to create more and more beautiful Lumia compositions. And in this little hall, we want to gather a membership of the ever-increasing group of people with vision, who appreciates the silent glory of light, who get very real values from it, and who someday, when the Bachs and Beethovens and Wagners of Lumia have swept the world with such beauty as we can hardly now imagine, will be proud to consider themselves chapter members of this humble beginning. And whatever funds we gather through membership, dues, lectures, recitals and donations will be put to work towards improvement and wise expansion. I should like to establish here an atmosphere of quiet informality, of unhurried concentration on the subject on hand, and of intimacy, which will make you feel part of these activities rather than spectators. This will enable me to give more easily of what I have to offer. To lay the broadest possible foundation for understanding, let us first imagine timelessness and unlimited dark space, from an unknown and inconceivable source of cluster of sparks are propelled into eternity, spinning around themselves. They dissolve into more, and out of suns come planets, and out of planets moons, until they all cool and continue through space in darkness. During one fragment of a second, relatively speaking, one planet has cooled enough to permit what we call life, while the sun still retains power to emit the rays which make this life possible. Somewhere within the range of these rays is a narrow band of vibrations which we can detect, first by means of instrument, then by our senses, then again by instruments until they pass beyond the scope of these. The part of the narrow band which our senses record, we call heat and light. And heat and light alone make life possible on this tiny, half-extinguished spark, which we call the Earth. Man is therefore thermotropic and heliotropic. Warmth and light mean life, and cold and darkness, death. And through the evolution, two wonderful receptive organs developed to record the direction of light and to direct our steps towards it through impulses sent to the brain. Towards light is the great pilgrimage of all living things. First, it is the greatest symbol of conscious mankind's longing for understanding and spiritual liberation. Towards light. The physical journey is simple enough. Go where light is, enjoy it, live the path towards liberation, and understanding seems a slow one, along which we have progressed but little. Suppose for a moment that we would bring to our earth an intelligent creature from some other universe and show this creature the physical side of our present day civilization. Our comfortable homes, our means of transportation and communication, our arts and sciences, and the great physical resources from which we may draw. Would not the first reaction of such a creature be how happily and harmoniously we must all live together? How plentifully everyone must be supplied? What great and absolute truth have you arrived at with all this at your command? Teach me. What a pitiful and horrible duty should then be ours to bow our heads in shame while disclosing the social side of our civilization, our barbaric banding together in nations under the leadership not of philosophers or teachers, but of blind tyrants. Send us under false banners to destroy and kill in order that not we may gain more power and material wealth to be further misused against ourselves in such a fashion that millions starve amid plenty, and then even those who seek to bring beauty into the ugliness cannot give it freely to their fellow men. We must sell it to them for a price in order to live and carry on. Would not the creature exclaim in amazement? But have you had no true teachers, no true leaders? We should then have to bow our heads even deeper to answer. Yes, but we have permitted false leaders to crucify them all to distort their teachings for personal gain. The creature would then ask, Equo vadis, whether are you bound? And an honest answer would be towards utter destruction and oblivion, unless we all find the light of understanding of peace and harmony. Now, what place has all this in a lecture course on the new art of light? To my mind, a most important one, unless we are to deal with the subject in a very superficial manner. Our only heritage from bygone generations are their works of art, the voices of their music makers and their dreamers of dreams. Our only real progress has sprung from the seas they saw, and we shall be remembered only by the beauty we helped to bring about and by effects. By the effects it had on trend of our time, and much of what I have to say in this and subsequent lectures will be understood only upon this background. If we were not for beautiful ideals, we would never have progressed. If we do not now bring about new and more significant beauty, we shall cease to progress, as we obviously cannot continue to live on past achievement, no matter how fine. And there we are, a few of us, trying to open a new world of beauty, a new aesthetic language, the first use of the greatest force we know as a direct and independent medium of expression. The gate has remained closed until our day because the only key to it has been light, under control, strong white, dependable light from the electric lamp. The light is to us what a block of marble is to the sculptor, a palette of colors to the painter, and control sound to the musician. But as we begin to swing open the gate, we are watched with apprehension by some of the more worldly artists in 7 old R's. Painters have asked one another, how will this new art affect our work? Will it not take some of the glory away from static painting? Let us take no chances. Let us destroy the intruder with passive resistance and a gentle ridicule. Let us refuse its workers a place among us. And the age-old story is repeated. The new is caught and for a while retarded by the masters of the old. Many of those who saw my first performances at the neighborhood playhouse 11 years ago may well remember, or wonder, why after success little has been heard of the Klaverlux of late. It is because the first performances came as a complete surprise, and before any hindrances could be laid in its way and protective barriers built around it by those who believed the profession's in danger. Thousands had seen it, and before the critics could be reached, they had already proclaimed the arrival of a new art. Nevertheless, the years that followed became very difficult, but that I shall pass over because, again, history repeats. The which has vitality cannot be checked for long. It is like damming a river. It will continue to rise behind the dam until its pressure becomes irresistible, and then sweep every hindrance away to continue its course with all the more power. The moment is at hand, and at a most auspicious time. The world is floundering spiritually for lack of ideals. The false teachings have brought their own downfall. Education of the masses make it more and more difficult for the false leaders to gather, of following and sensing the beginning of the end. They are now making a last desperate drive for intolerance and hatred, without which they cannot exist. No better time could be found for driving the first radiant shaft of light from a new universal language of beauty out into the darkness. An art which speaks in silence of all that we believed lost, an art which will gather us in great temples of light, and there open the doors to the deepest corners of our souls, simply and in silence, with a wordless and creedless message of pure beauty, a silence and simplicity are the two things we need most today, because they bring us tolerance and understanding, and through these alone can we bring about harmony and peace. Thus, do I see the importance of Lumia, the art of light? Let us shape a master language of beauty from the greatest force we know. And let me enlist the active interest of every one of you here to help us lay the foundation. Light has been man's constant companion through all evolution. Hence, in everyday life, we pay as little attention to it as we do to the air we breathe. At least very few pause to contemplate the tremendous difference between the nature of sound and light vibrations. Witness the many unfortunate attempts to establish an actual physical relation between sound and light, music and color. The scientists are still unable to agree on the absolute nature of light, but as we shall deal as little as possible with the scientific aid, it is sufficient to state that strange yellow light emitted from our sun is filtered through the blue-violet atmosphere and reaches the surface of the earth as white light, which the human eye can record between the vibration frequencies of about 400 to 750 billions of vibrations per second. Within this range, we find all the spectral colors from deep red to high violets, and the combination of all makes white light, as I shall show in a later lecture. The human eye is, however, not our only receptor of light. Every square inch of our skin surface is meant to receive a certain amount of it every day, and much of our present day. Disease is the direct result of the covering up of our bodies. The human eye receives visual impressions far in excess of anything the brain can record in a useful way. And at the entrance gates to the brain from eye and ear, we have a sorting room through which only a part of the impressions are permitted to reach the consciousness. And according to the quality and efficiency of this sorting room, we become wise and ignorant, happy or unhappy, and wise or ignorant. And it may well be compared to tuning dial of a radio receiver. Some are set to receive only jazz, and they generally operate all day long, but the result is zero. Some are set to receive the now very rare serious music and speech, while others are incapable of tuning in one station at a time and get sopranos, jazz and cooking instructions all at once. To focus the eyes on what they should see and to retain that clearly is also an altogether too rare gift. Civilization is only about 3,000 years old, while the human race has existed approximately 1 million years. We have therefore, under a rarely thin and creating a number of powerful traits dating back to the long period primitive life. These we must try to analyze because many of them still unconsciously determine our reactions to visual and oral impressions. We shall then begin to understand, for instance, why we are unhappy in certain rooms and quite at ease in others. Why some of us prefer strong glaring lights and are horrified in absolute darkness, while others seek subdued light and are at home in darkness. Similarly, while some people seek recreation in excessive noise, while periodic silence is as necessary as food and drink to others. Imagine then a primitive man standing on a plain in broad daylight. from after something approaches, or approaches now, importance are his impressions. First is the position. He may trace the size and contents and characters and identify it as friend 4. The next comes motion, which path must it follow to reach me, how fast it is moving, is it moving continuously or slowing down at times, and finally, if I move, which way shall I move? Least important is color. Has it an open red mouth framed by white teeth and bloodshot eyes, or are the colors peaceful? Remember this last paragraph, because in our 3rd lecture on Lumia, you will see how I've arrived at the basic factors of the art form in precisely this way, namely in order of their importance and formative visual experience. The result has been a very simple clear-out frame of reference, which has proved very practical. Form, motion are the 2 most important factors, and they determine to a great extent the effect a given color has on us. Red, for instance, the color of fire and blood, is basically exciting. If it flashes before the vision, it flame-like waves. It meant something to flee from, and our adrenal glands still furnish our blood with extra power for flight at the site of moving red areas. But if we stop all motion and show a large even area of plain red, the effect is provocation and irritation, and subconscious reason is flames always flicker, rise and fall. This red does not move, it is unusual, be on guard. Those of you who live and try to work in red rooms, please remember, it is possible to use red in narrow horizontal bars on a background of orange and blue-grey with surprising effects of quiet and restfulness. And days over, danger is past, go to rest.